You know, in my 300 cycles serving the Galactic Council's military archives, I thought I had seen everything. Every battle formation, every tactical maneuver, every species-specific combat doctrine ever recorded. I cataloged the Great Siege of Andromeda 7, the plasma storms of Kessex Prime, the dimensional warfare of the Void Lords themselves, but humans, oh, humans were something else entirely. Let me back up. My name is Vrekk, Senior Archivist for the Council, and I need to tell you about the Battle of Outpost Meridian. Not because it was the biggest battle in the war, not because it had the most casualties, but because it was the day I realized that every single assumption we had made about warfare, about logic, about survival itself, was completely and utterly wrong. The humans had been part of the Council for maybe, 40 rotations. Barely a blip in galactic time. They showed up in their crude fusion drive vessels, grinning like idiots, asking if we had coffee. Coffee. As if that was the most important thing about first contact. We thought they were harmless. Enthusiastic, sure, reckless. Absolutely. But harmless. The Kryllian Swarm disagreed. Now the Kryllians, they were a problem. Had been for centuries. Insectoid, hive-minded, and absolutely relentless. They consumed entire star systems, turning planets into breeding grounds. When they set their multifaceted eyes on human-controlled space, the Council did what we always did. We calculated. We strategized. We ran the numbers. The numbers were bad. Outpost Meridian was a listening post on the edge of human territory, staffed by maybe 40 humans. 40! When our long-range sensors detected the Kryllian fleet approaching, we counted 40,000 Kryllian warriors. 40,000 to 40. 1,000 to 1 odds. The Council sent an immediate evacuation order. This was not a fight, it was mathematics. And the math said everyone dies. I was monitoring the comm channels when Commander Marcus Cole received the order. I will never forget his response. Acknowledged, Council Command. Cole said, his voice crackling through the subspace link. Evacuation order received and noted. There was a pause, the kind of pause that made my sensory tendrils twitch. However, Cole continued, and I swear I could hear the smile in his voice, we are going to have to respectfully decline. My supervisor, Morse, nearly fell out of his hover seat. Decline? Did he just say decline? They are going to die, I said, checking the tactical display again. The Kryllian Swarm was spreading across the screen like a disease. They must know they are going to die. Someone patch me through to their command structure, Morse demanded. These humans clearly do not understand basic mathematics. What we did not understand was that humans had a very different relationship with mathematics than the rest of us. The Kryllian fleet arrived in orbit 6 hours later. We watched through the outpost's external cameras, and I have to tell you, it was terrifying even from thousands of light years away. The Kryllians did not do subtle. Their bioships pulsed and writhed in space like living nightmares, each one carrying hundreds of warriors. They blocked out the stars. On the ground, Commander Cole gathered his people in the outpost's central hub. I had accessed the internal cameras by then, my curiosity overriding my protocols. 40 humans, looking up at their commander. Some looked scared, sure, but most just looked focused. One of them, a woman with bright red hair, Elena Briggs, according to her file, was actually checking her weapon and humming. All right, people, Cole said, clapping his hands together. Let's talk about our current situation. The good news is, we have plenty of ammunition. The bad news is, there are about 1,000 bugs for every one of us, and they really want to kill us. Someone in the back, a young man named Thomas Webb, raised his hand. Sir, those odds sound pretty bad, Cole grinned. Webb, those odds sound pretty bad if you are anything other than human. But we are not anything other than human, are we? A ripple of laughter went through the group. Laughter. I could not comprehend it. Morse was making confused clicking sounds beside me. Here is what we know about Kryllians, Cole continued, pulling up a holographic display. They are strong, fast, and they have overwhelming numbers. They have biological armor, acid for blood, and they feel no fear. They operate as a hive mind, which means perfect coordination and no hesitation. That sounds like a lot of strength, sir, another soldier said, a woman named Julia Grant. Oh, it is, Cole agreed. But they have one critical weakness. They think like a hive. They rely on overwhelming force and instinct. They have never, not once in their entire history, faced an enemy that refuses to follow the logical conclusion of being outnumbered. He paused, looking at each of his people in turn. They have never fought humans. The first wave hit 30 minutes later. The Kryllians dropped from orbit in swarms, biological drop pods that burned through the atmosphere like meteors. They did not bother with tactics, just crashed into the ground in a circle around the outpost and started moving in. The sound they made, even through the audio feeds, was nightmare fuel. Chittering, screeching, thousands of leg segments clicking against rock. The humans waited. I noticed they had not taken defensive positions inside the outpost, which would have been the logical choice. Instead, they had positioned themselves outside in a series of trenches and fortifications they had apparently spent the last 6 hours constructing. "They are insane," Moores whispered. "They moved out of their defensible position." "Apparently so," I replied, unable to look away from the screens. The Kryllian Swarm got within 500 meters. 400. 300. Elena Briggs was in the forward trench, and her comm was still broadcasting. I heard her take a deep breath, then speak quietly to the person next to her. "Remember, smooth pulls on the trigger. These things are tough, but they are not immortal. 2 shots center mass, 1 to the head if they keep coming." "How are you so calm?" the other soldier asked, voice shaking. "Because," Elena said, and I swear she was smiling, "I have been waiting my whole life to fight actual aliens, and these bugs just made it personal by threatening my coffee supply. They destroyed the supply ship last week, remember? 200 meters. 100. Cole's voice came through every comm channel. "Hold!" 50 meters. I could see individual Kryllians now, each one the size of a human, with blade-like arms and mandibles that could crush steel. "Hold!" 25 meters. "Fire!" I am going to pause here and try to explain what happened next, but honestly, it is difficult. Not because it was complicated, but because it was so simple and yet so utterly devastating. The humans opened fire, but they did not just shoot. They had turned the entire area around the outpost into what they called a kill zone. Every weapon was calibrated, every field of fire overlapping. When those Kryllians entered that zone, they entered a meat grinder. The sound was incredible. Kinetic rifles, plasma bursts, explosive rounds, all synchronized in a symphony of destruction. The Kryllians in the front ranks simply disintegrated. Those behind them tried to advance over the bodies and met the same fate. But here is the thing. The Kryllians kept coming. Because that is what Kryllians do. They do not retreat. They do not feel fear. They just keep coming until either they are dead or you are. Against any other species, this would have worked. Sheer numbers would overwhelm the defenses, crush the enemy through attrition. Humans, though. Humans are spite incarnate. "Reload!" someone shouted. "Sectors 3 and 4. Tighten your spread." That was Julia Grant, directing fire like she was conducting an orchestra. "They are flanking left," Thomas Webb called out. "Let them," Cole responded calmly. "The mines will get them." And the mines did. I watched entire groups of Kryllians trigger the explosive traps the humans had laid, sending carapace and Ixchar flying. This went on for 2 hours. 2 hours of continuous combat, and not a single Kryllian made it within 20 meters of the human lines. Moores had stopped clicking and was just staring at the screens. All 4 of his eyes wide. "This is not possible." He kept saying, "This is not possible." "It is happening," I replied, frantically taking notes. This was going to rewrite every tactical manual in the archives. The Kryllians pulled back, regrouping for another assault. The humans used the break to resupply, check their weapons, and apparently tell jokes. I heard Elena laughing about something, and someone was passing around water containers. "They are not even breathing hard," I observed. "How are they not exhausted?" "Adrenaline," Moore said, reading from a data pad about human biology. "Apparently their bodies produce a chemical during stress that enhances performance. It is like they have built-in combat stimulants." "That seems unfair," I muttered. The second wave was different. The Kryllians adapted, sending in smaller, faster units while their heavy warriors prepared to breach the defenses. It was actually a sound tactical adjustment, exactly what the war manuals recommended. The humans adapted faster. Cole split his forces, sending Elena and a squad to handle the light units while the main force prepared for the heavy assault. Elena moved through the battlefield like she was born to it, her squad following her lead. They set up ambush points, used the terrain to their advantage, and picked off the Kryllian scouts before they could report back. How did she know they would split their forces? Morse asked. She did not, I said, watching Cole's calm expression on another screen. He gambled. He guessed what the Kryllians would do and prepared for it. That is insane. That is human. The heavy assault came at dusk, local time. The Kryllians sent everything they had, a massive wave of their largest warriors, each one capable of tearing through starship hull plating. They moved in a coordinated rush, timing their approach from multiple directions. The humans fell back to secondary positions, a planned retreat that drew the Kryllians exactly where they wanted them. And then the outpost automated defenses came online. I had wondered why the humans had not activated them earlier. Now I understood. They had been waiting, letting the Kryllians commit to their assault, bunch up in specific zones. The turrets emerged from hidden positions and opened fire. Not the standard defensive lasers most species used. No, the humans had rigged them with what they called rotary cannons, weapons that fired thousands of solid projectiles per minute. The effect on the Kryllian formations was catastrophic, but even that was not enough to stop them all. Dozens broke through, reaching the human lines. This is where it got interesting. You see, every other species in the galaxy fights at range when possible. It is logical. Why risk close combat when you have ranged weapons? The humans used ranged weapons brilliantly, but when the Kryllians got close, they seemed almost happy about it. I watched Cole draw a blade, an actual physical blade, from his belt and step forward to meet a Kryllian warrior twice his size. The creature swung its scythe-like arms, strikes that should have bisected him. Cole slid under the blow, moving with impossible precision, and drove his blade up through the Kryllian's thorax. As it fell, he was already moving to the next one. "They are insane," Morse said again. It was becoming his catchphrase. Elena was fighting 3 Kryllians at once, using a combination of her rifle as a club and something the humans called martial arts. She broke one's legs, shot the second, and somehow flipped the third over her shoulder into an explosive trap. Thomas Webb was fighting back-to-back with Julia Grant, both of them laughing, actually laughing, as they held off a swarm of warriors. This went on for another 3 hours. When the sun rose the next morning, the Kryllian forces withdrew to orbit. Of the 40,000 warriors they had sent, less than half remained combat effective. The human casualties, 7 wounded, none killed. I sat in the archive chamber, trying to process what I had witnessed. Morse had already left, muttering about updating the Council's threat assessment algorithms. I was alone with the recordings, replaying them over and over. There was a pattern here, something that went beyond tactics or weapons or even that terrifying human adaptability. It was something fundamental about their species. They refused to lose. Not because they were more skilled, though they were skilled, not because they had better weapons, though their weapons were effective. They refused to lose because the alternative, surrender or death, was simply unacceptable to them. Every human on that outpost would have died before giving ground, not because they were ordered to, but because that is what humans do. A message came through on my console. It was from Commander Cole, Archivist Vrekk. "I understand you have been monitoring our situation. Please inform the Council that Outpost Meridian remains under human control. The Kryllians seem to be reconsidering their approach. We will update you if anything changes. Oh, and if supply ships are heading this way, could you ask them to prioritize coffee? We are running low." Coffee. They nearly died defending their position against impossible odds, and he was worried about coffee. I started typing my report to the Council, trying to find words that would adequately describe what I had witnessed. How do you explain to a logical, ordered civilization that there is a species out there that treats math as a suggestion, that views impossible odds as a challenge rather than a deterrent? I settled on a simple statement. Council Command, regarding the human defense of Outpost Meridian, current status: humans victorious. Kryllian forces repelled, human casualties minimal. Recommend immediate revision of all combat doctrine involving human forces. These beings do not fight by our rules. They may not even have rules. Further observation required. I paused, then added one more line. Note: humans are requesting coffee. Suggest this is treated as a priority. I do not want to find out what happens when they do not get their coffee. I sent the report and sat back, my tendrils twitching. The Kryllians would return. That was certain. They had 40,000 warriors left, and more would be coming. The humans were outnumbered 1,000 to 1, and that ratio was only getting worse. And somehow I found myself not worried about the humans. I was worried about the Kryllians. The Kryllians returned 4 days later, and they brought friends. I had barely finished cataloging the first battle when our deep space sensors lit up like a supernova festival. The Kryllian hive had sent reinforcements, not just a few thousand more warriors. Oh no, that would have been too reasonable. They sent 3 full battle fleets, 120,000 Kryllian warriors, descending on a single outpost defended by 40 humans, 3,000 to 1. The council convened an emergency session. I was there presenting my findings from the first engagement when Grand Admiral Thallux interrupted me. "Archivist Vrekk," she said, her translator unit struggling with her species' clicking language. "We appreciate your thorough documentation. However, the new fleet composition makes evacuation mandatory. No debate, no discussion. Those humans must withdraw immediately." I looked at the tactical display. The Kryllian forces were massive, covering the screens like a plague. Even I, who had just watched humans perform miracles, had to admit this looked impossible. "With respect, Admiral," I said carefully, "have you reviewed the battle recordings? The humans have proven quite capable of defending their position. Against 40,000. The Lex snapped. "This is 120,000. The mathematics are absolute. They will be overwhelmed in hours, perhaps minutes. Send the evacuation order." Now, I sent it. Commander Cole's response came back within 30 seconds. "Council Command, this is Outpost Meridian. We acknowledge your concern and appreciate the evacuation order. However, after careful consideration and a vote among the personnel, we have decided to remain at our post." There was a pause on the recording, then Cole continued. "Also, we would like to formally request ammunition resupply, specifically anti-armor rounds, and coffee obviously. Lots of coffee." Cole out. Moores looked at me. "They voted? Apparently democracy extends to suicide missions." I replied. "This is unacceptable," Admiral Threat said. "They are under Council authority. They must obey orders." I pulled up the human contract with the Council, something I had been reviewing extensively over the past few days. "Actually, Admiral, according to Section 7, Paragraph 12 of the Human Membership Agreement, human military forces retain autonomous decision-making authority regarding defensive operations on human territory. Outpost Meridian is technically human soil. That clause was meant for strategic decisions, not for preventing them from saving their own lives." "The humans would argue those are the same thing, Admiral." The Pax made a sound that my translator rendered as frustrated resignation. "Fine. They want to die for their outpost? Let them. But I want round-the-clock monitoring. When they request emergency extraction, and they will, I want ships ready to jump in immediately, assuming any of them survive long enough to request it." The Kryllians began their assault at dawn, local time. Apparently they had learned something about timing from the last battle. What they had not learned was anything useful about humans. The first wave came in hot, drop pods screaming through the atmosphere in a coordinated bombardment pattern designed to overwhelm defensive systems. It was textbook orbital assault, the kind that had crushed 100 worlds. The humans did not use textbook responses. "All stations." "This is Cole," the commander's voice was calm, almost cheerful. "Remember, we have practiced this. Execute plan ridiculous overkill on my mark." And ridiculous overkill. The humans had actually named their defensive strategy Plan Ridiculous Overkill. I was beginning to understand why the rest of the galaxy found them unsettling. Mark. The outpost's exterior transformed. Panels slid away, revealing weapons emplacements that had not been there during the first battle. The humans had spent the last 4 days fortifying, building and apparently installing enough firepower to level a small city. The drop pods hit an invisible wall of flak fire. The humans had rigged proximity mines in orbit, simple but effective. Dozens of pods exploded before reaching the ground. Those that made it through landed in pre-targeted kill zones where automated turrets were waiting. "Sir, Eastern Quadrant is hot," Elena Briggs reported. She sounded excited. "They are coming in heavy." "Copy that, Webb. Grant, take your squads and show them our new toys." I watched as Thomas Webb and Julia Grant led their people to positions around massive weapons that looked like they belonged on warships, not ground installations. They had somehow mounted ship-grade plasma cannons on mobile platforms. "Is that even possible?" Moores asked, staring at the screen. "For humans? Apparently everything is possible if you are crazy enough." The plasma cannons opened fire, each shot vaporizing multiple Kryllians. But the bugs kept coming, wave after wave, their numbers seemingly endless. Casualty report, Cole requested. 63 confirmed kills. No friendly casualties. Someone responded, not bad for the first 5 minutes. Keep it up, people. 5 minutes. They had killed 63 Kryllians in 5 minutes and thought it was not bad. The Kryllians must have been going insane or whatever passed for insane in a hive mind. The second wave adapted, using the wreckage from the first wave as cover. Smart, actually. The Kryllian hive mind was learning, adjusting its tactics. The humans adjusted faster. They are using cover, Elena observed. Switching to armor-piercing rounds. All units. Target the wreckage. Deny them the cover. The humans started shooting the destroyed Kryllian bodies, explosive rounds turning cover into shrapnel that killed the warriors hiding behind it. It was brutal, efficient, and absolutely terrifying. A Kryllian heavy warrior broke through the defensive line, something that stood 4 meters tall with armor plating that could deflect plasma. It charged toward a human position, unstoppable. A soldier named Marcus Ray stood his ground, aimed carefully, and fired a single shot. The round hit the Kryllian in its mouth, the only weak point in its armor, and exited through the back of its skull. Nice shot, Ray, Cole said calmly. Thank you, sir. I have been practicing. He made it sound like target shooting at a range, not killing an alien monster that could tear him apart. The battle continued for 6 hours straight. The Kryllians threw everything at the outpost. Fast attack units, heavy assault warriors, even flying variants that swooped down from above. The humans countered every move, adapted to every tactic, and absolutely refused to give ground. Then the Kryllians changed their approach. Sir, they are pulling back, Elena reported. All units retreating to minimum engagement range. Sensor readings? Cole asked. There was a pause, then a new voice, someone named David Park from the sensor station. Sir, I am reading massive energy buildup in the Kryllian fleet. They are charging their bioplasma projectors. I knew what that meant. We all did. The Kryllians were going to bombard the outpost from orbit. There was no defense against that, no clever human trick that could stop capital ship weapons from turning the entire area into molten glass. Time to impact? Cole asked. 4 minutes, sir. Plenty of time. Execute plan when all else fails. Sir? Elena sounded confused. We never discussed a plan called when all else fails. That is because I just made it up. Everyone get to the bunker. Move! Move! The humans abandoned their positions and ran for the outpost's underground shelter. I watched them go, feeling something I had not expected, sadness. They had fought so well, so bravely, and now they were going to die because of orbital bombardment. There was no shame in it, no failure, just mathematics and firepower. Admiral, I said quietly, we should prepare extraction ships. If any survive the bombardment, we need to get them out before the ground assault finishes them. Deluxe nodded, for once not arguing. The Kryllian fleet fired. 3 massive bioplasma beams lanced down from orbit, each one carrying enough energy to crack a planet's crust. They converged on Outpost Meridian in a blinding flash of destructive power. The screens went white. When the sensors cleared, I expected to see a crater. Instead, I saw something that made absolutely no sense. The outpost was still there, damaged. Sure. Smoking. Definitely. But standing. What in the 17 hells, Morse whispered. Replay the impact, I demanded. Show me what happened. The technician rewound the feed and played it in slow motion. Just before the plasma beams hit, something activated. A shimmering field appeared above the outpost. Some kind of energy shield. But not any shield I recognized from Council technology. Where did they get shield generators? Admiral Thalex demanded. I was already pulling up the supply manifests. They requested them 3 days ago. Said they wanted to experiment with integrating human and Council technology. We sent them a dozen standard defensive shields, the kind used on small transport ships. Those shields cannot stop orbital bombardment, Thalex said flatly. It is physically impossible. The power requirements alone would require a fusion reactor 10 times larger than what that outpost has. On screen, Commander Cole's voice came through the comms, slightly distorted but unmistakably amused. Council Command, this is Outpost Meridian. We are still here. Shields held at 42%, preparing for ground assault. Also, we would like to file a formal complaint about the Kryllians cheating by using orbital weapons. Seems unsportsmanlike. How? Thalex asked. No one in particular, How is this possible? I was reading through the technical data the outpost was transmitting. My translator working overtime. They networked the shields. Instead of using them individually, they linked all 12 together in a cascading array. Each shield supplements the others, distributing the load. It should not work. The interference patterns alone should cause catastrophic feedback, but somehow they made it work. Let me guess, Morse said. They tried it because no one told them it was impossible. Probably. The Kryllians, thoroughly frustrated at this point, sent their entire ground force at once. 120,000 warriors, charging from all directions in a massive swarm that blackened the landscape. The humans had exactly 8 minutes to prepare before that wave hit. "All right, people," Cole said, and I swear he sounded like he was having the time of his life. "This is it. The big one. Everyone remembers their jobs." A chorus of affirmatives came back. "Good. Elena, you have tactical command of sections 1 through 4. Webb, you have 5 through 8. Grant, you are on mobile response. Ray, Park, keep those sensors running. If anything bigger than a transport bug shows up, I want to know about it." "Sir," Elena said, "there are a lot of them." "There certainly are, Briggs. There certainly are. But you know what? There are exactly 40 of us. We have full ammunition loads, and I just had my 3rd cup of coffee. I like our odds." The Kryllian horde hit like a tsunami of chitin and fury. The humans met them with what could only be described as orchestrated chaos. They had set up layered defenses, each one designed to channel the Kryllians into specific paths. The first layer was mines and automated turrets. Standard stuff. The second layer was where it got interesting. They had constructed walls from the wreckage of destroyed Kryllian ships, creating corridors that forced the swarm to bunch up. And in those corridors they had placed what Thomas Webb called surprise mechanics. I watched as thousands of Kryllians funneled into a canyon formed by debris walls, and then the humans triggered charges that brought the walls down on top of them. Hundreds died instantly. Thousands more were trapped. "Surprise," Webb said cheerfully, firing into the trapped mass. The Kryllians adapted, splitting their forces to avoid the kill zones. The humans adapted to the adaptation, with mobile squads hitting the divided forces from unexpected angles. Elena led a squad in what she called a countercharge, actually running toward a Kryllian formation to hit them from the side before they could regroup. It was tactically insane and absolutely effective. The Kryllians, used to enemies that ran away, did not know how to handle enemies that ran toward them. "Ray, I need a head count," Cole called out. "Estimated 15,000 down, sir. Maybe 20,000 if you count the ones too damaged to fight effectively. Only 100,000 to go. We have got this." They did not have it. Not by any logical assessment, but humans, I was learning, did not care about logical assessments. A massive Kryllian command variant, something that stood 6 meters tall and radiated psionic control signals, emerged from the swarm. These creatures were rare, valuable to the hive mind, and nearly indestructible. It pointed one of its massive claws at the human position and screeched, a sound that made my audio sensors overload even through the recording. Julia Grant looked at it, looked at her squad, and said, "I want that one." "It is too big," someone protested. "Then we use bigger guns." "Ray, Park, bring up the experimental cannon." The experimental cannon turned out to be something the humans had cobbled together from spare parts and what looked like the engine core from a destroyed ship. They had turned it into a massive railgun. "This is either going to work great or explode in our faces," Park said, checking the power connections. "Either way, it will be impressive," Ray replied. They fired. The projectile hit the Kryllian command variant with so much kinetic energy that it did not just kill the creature, it disintegrated it and everything behind it for 50 meters. The shockwave knocked down Kryllians like dominoes. "It worked great," Park announced happily. "Do not get cocky," Grant said. "We only had one shot with that thing. The power cell is dead." One shot was enough. With their command variant dead, the Kryllian forces lost coordination. Not completely, the hive mind could still direct them, but there was a noticeable lag in their response times. The humans exploited this ruthlessly, hitting them in waves, retreating before they could respond, then hitting again from a different angle. It was exhausting just watching it. I could not imagine actually doing it. The battle raged for 14 hours straight. 14 hours of continuous combat. The humans rotated positions, but there were only 40 of them. They had to be exhausted, running on nothing but adrenaline and spite. Coffee. Always coffee. Somehow, in the middle of the fighting, they took turns going back to the bunker for coffee breaks. This is absurd, Admiral Thalek said, watching Marcus Ray calmly drink from a thermal container while Kryllians died around him. They are treating this like a normal workday. For humans, I said slowly, maybe it is. As dawn broke on the second day, the Kryllian forces finally broke. Not retreated, not regrouped, broke. The hive mind, facing casualties it had never experienced before, made a decision. The remaining warriors, maybe 40,000 of them, withdrew to their ships and jumped to hyperspace. They fled. The Kryllians, who had never retreated from any battle in recorded history, ran away from 40 humans. The comm channel crackled to life. Council Command, this is Commander Cole at Outpost Meridian. Battle concluded. Outpost secure. Enemy forces repelled. Casualties. Let me check. 18 wounded, 5 seriously but stable. 0 fatalities. I repeat, 0 fatalities. He paused, and when he spoke again, I could hear the exhaustion in his voice, but also something else, pride. We held the line. Outpost Meridian remains under human control. Oh, and we are definitely going to need that coffee now, and maybe some medical supplies and possibly a vacation. Call out. The council chamber was silent. Admiral Vrekk looked at me. Your report, Archivist Vrekk. I want a full tactical analysis. How did 40 humans defeat 160,000 Kryllians? I spent the next week reviewing every second of footage, every comm transmission, every tactical decision. I interviewed council military experts, ran combat simulations, and analyzed human biology and psychology reports. My final report was 3,000 pages long, but the conclusion could be summarized in a single paragraph. Humans won because they refused to lose. They won because they adapted faster than any species we have ever encountered. They won because they looked at impossible odds and saw a challenge, not a death sentence. They won because fundamentally they do not think like the rest of us. We calculate probabilities and make logical decisions. Humans calculate probabilities and then decide those probabilities do not apply to them. The council debated my findings for days. Some wanted to integrate human tactics into our standard military doctrine. Others argued that human methods were too reckless, too dependent on individual initiative and creative thinking. In the end, the council passed Resolution 792, which officially recognized humans as a Category Alpha military species, the first new species to receive that designation in 4 centuries. It granted them autonomy in military operations and established human combat units as priority response teams for crisis situations. The resolution passed unanimously. As for Outpost Meridian, it became something of a legend. Other species started referring to it as the place where math went to die. Human recruitment offices reported a 300% increase in applications, everyone wanting to be like the 40 of Meridian. I visited the outpost myself, 6 months after the battle. Commander Cole gave me a tour showing me the fortifications, the weapons, the shield array that should not have worked but did. Archivist Vrekk, he said as we stood on the perimeter wall looking out at the scarred battlefield. Can I ask you something? Of course, Commander. Did you ever think we would make it? Be honest. I considered lying, but humans appreciated honesty. No, Commander. I did not. The math said you would lose. Every tactical analysis said you would lose. By all logical reasoning, you should have lost. Cole smiled. But we did not. No, you did not. You want to know the secret? He asked, pulling out a thermal container and taking a sip of coffee. It is not that we are better fighters, or smarter, or even that we have better weapons. We won because when faced with impossible odds, we have a choice. We can accept that impossibility and give up, or we can look at impossible in the eye and say, not today. He offered me the container. Coffee? I took it, examining the dark liquid. This is the beverage you requested during the battle, the one you prioritized over additional weapons. That is right. Why is it so important? Cole laughed. Because, Archivist, coffee is what keeps us human. It reminds us that even in the middle of a war zone, even when facing death, we can stop and enjoy something simple. It is a declaration that we are alive, we are here, and we are not going anywhere. I took a small sip. It was bitter, hot, and somehow comforting. I think I understand now, Commander. It is not about the coffee at all. No, Cole agreed. It is about refusing to let the universe tell us what we can and cannot do. We are human, archivist. We have climbed out of caves, split the atom, reached the stars, and now we are here defending a single outpost against impossible odds. And you know what the best part is? What is that, Commander? We will do it again tomorrow if we have to. And the day after that. And every day after, because that is what humans do. We do not give up. We do not give in, and we definitely do not let anyone, not even the universe itself, tell us no. I looked out at the battlefield, at the monument the humans had erected. It was a simple stone with 40 names carved into it, the 40 of Meridian who had held the line. Above the names was a single sentence. They outnumbered us 1,000 to 1. They learned that was not enough. I filed my final report that evening. The Council would distribute it to every species, every military academy, every strategic planning center in the galaxy, and they would all learn the same lesson I had learned. Never underestimate humanity. Never assume that numbers tell the whole story, and never ever get between a human and their coffee. Because humans, I had discovered, were not just another species joining the galactic community. They were a fundamental force of nature, as unstoppable as entropy and twice as stubborn. And I, for one, was very glad they were on our side.